Great, thank you very much for having us here tonight. It's fantastic for us to be here. My name is Richard Cope. I'm the Senior Trends Consultant. That means I basically run the trend side of our business, which we're a market research business. We've got all kinds of research, product launches. We've got trend spotters all around the world. And I manage the trend side of the business, looking at some of the big picture consumer trends and what they mean for businesses in all kinds of different sectors. And in the next 20 minutes, maybe slightly quicker if I can do it, we are going to look through this presentation, walking through the young and old. I'm going to show you some of the trends affecting young people, affecting seniors, and how these groups are actually far similar and far more united than you might at first think. And we're going to look at a lot of the innovations which are being driven by millennials and being driven by the aging population, and a lot of the business opportunities, particularly in terms of entrepreneurship, which we see around that as well. So hopefully 20 minutes, we've got time for some questions as well, but I know you guys want to start networking too. So we're going to start in the first section by looking at this section, Mind Mapped, where we look at millennials and look how the fact that they've grown up in the digital environment, they've grown up with the internet, how has that made them different in terms of the way they think? So we'll look at the different characteristics they've got. And before we get on to talking about seniors, we're going to look at this bridge which is happening, namely that more and more younger people are living with their parents and living with elderly relatives as well. So we're going to see more crossover between these two demographics. And then we'll get on talking about seniors, the financial opportunities that are presented by seniors, a lot of the innovations we're going to see, particularly in technology, which are going to benefit seniors, and how seniors are going to drive on innovation, and seniors are going to become major employers of younger people and innovative businesses as well. So let's start with millennials. They are reared on technology. This is a real product. This is not something we have designed or created. If you want to dream this up, you're too late. So the parents we talk to, huge proportions, talk about how they use digital technology to train their children, to educate their children going forward as well. So it's a generation that's been raised on this from the outset. And when we talk to mums in the UK in our research, we find that big proportions of mums are using online and digital resources to help study homework with their children. Huge proportions of mums are playing games online, streaming content with their children, or indeed playing console games or playing online games as well. So it's a generation reared on this technology, and it's uniting them with their parents as well. So what is this doing for this generation of millennials who've grown up with technology? Well, one thing we think it's doing is making them more open. By this, I mean they're more open to new ideas, they're more open to talking about feelings, they're less embarrassed about a lot of things we talked about previously. So when we talk to consumers all around the world, this example's from Brazil, large proportions say that they go online to look for advice, information about personal care issues and things like that. So that is changing the mentality. The embarrassment factor previous generations had about a lot of medical issues, personal issues, is gone, and they're much more confident and willing to talk about these issues with medical professionals or indeed with businesses. So this section of the presentation, you may find some of this quite off-putting, this next section, but the whole section isn't going to be like that. So we see this is a great example of what I'm talking about here. This is a menstruation tracking app from China, which is used by consumers, and it's endemic of that new openness I'm talking about. But this has grown into being something much, much more than that. It's now sort of a community forum, a bit like something like Mumsnet, where people are rallying around to share information about all kinds of issues, not just the original issue it was set up for. And because of this new openness we have about talking about issues online, it makes us more comfortable with some pretty radical concepts in advertising. This is an extreme one from Brazil, from our trend spotters there, a campaign by Durex. They basically created this capsule which they have about 50 feet in the air above big festival crowds, and they actually get people to go inside this capsule, couples, and have safe sex in this capsule, which has got one-way glass, so you can see out and have this sort of feeling of being above thousands of people. They can't see in. So we get very outrageous campaigns going forward based on the fact that millennials are so open. I'm going to push the envelope a little bit further now with this safe sex campaign from Norway, where they have this guy in this penis suit going up behind couples and warning them about the dangers of unprotected sex. And all this comes back to that new openness we see spoken about. Now, the entire presentation isn't all about this. I'm going to disappoint some of you or make some of you happy, but People are more individual because of digital communication, because we're all encouraged to have a presence on social media, to be putting out our view, our opinion, posting images on Instagram of what we're doing. You're encouraged to be an individual and put over your opinion. So we see that even with consumers saying us that what kind of phone they've got or what kind of apps they use is an expression of their individuality and their personality. So this means that when we talk about luxury, people really crave this idea of customization. Personalization, customization, very, very important, very, very big for this demographic. So some industries, particularly the fashion industry, particularly the beauty industry, are really excelling at providing customization. This Asmalte machine here from Brazil has 100,000 different nail polish colors it can provide you with, because millennials are thriving on this customization and individuality. And sometimes they're going back to the past to get individuality. So we have a trend called Never Say Die. It's not about nostalgia. It's about people wanting to find an identity. It's like the idea that the internet's this big kind of esoteric museum of knowledge. You can become an expert on 1920s jazz or something like that very easily. And it's one of the reasons there's been a renaissance in vinyl record sales. The people buying vinyl, it's not people like me, it's millennials. You know, the biggest seller of vinyl in America is Urban Outfitters. It's younger consumers going back to this as a way of exploring, expressing their individuality. An argument that millennials are more forgetful, because the way they think, it's not necessary to remember information anymore. So we get studies from all around the world talking about the attention span becoming more like a goldfish, because it's not necessary anymore to remember information. We get university studies proving that if people know they can access information, they won't remember it. So, you know, if people think about this negatively, I think this is actually something really positive, because we can use our brains for doing other things rather than just remembering things like facts. So Alan Rutsbridger, a former editor of The Guardian, really nails this here, talking about the idea that having something like a smartphone, you don't need a memory. That is your kind of hard drive and external memory. So it means we can use our minds, if we're a millennial, to be much more creative going forward. And academics, teachers, they really strongly agree that this is a generation which has got more output in terms of creativity, more places to express that going forward as well. Then there's the flip side. Philosophers like Slavoj Žižek, he's very concerned that this internet-led way of thinking can actually hinder creativity, because we follow this kind of algorithm-led approach. And because we're getting recommendations all the time from searches and we're making decisions very quickly, he's concerned that you get less examples of learning by your mistakes, getting the wrong answer, ending up in the wrong place, which has always been a real hallmark of creativity. So we've got to beware of being overconnected and having that algorithm-led approach. Also examples, unfortunately, the millennials are a much more anxious generation, more problems. We have the FOMO, the fear of missing out phenomenon, which is something which particularly concerns younger consumers. And young consumers, the most likely of all who we talk to, are likely to say they feel high levels of stress, or they're feeling more stressed than a year ago. And I think connectivity and some of its pressures is playing a part here. But this is a generation that has more social connections, more friends than any other generation. If you look at the number of social ties the average internet user has compared to the people who previously didn't have, we have more connections in that regard. And what we're seeing, and this is a lot of opportunities around this in terms of entrepreneurship, is the kind of dating, the sort of Tinder phenomenon crossing over to lots of different sectors. So Tinder, phenomenally successful business, see how many people it's attracting. Well, we recently went to see a speech by Sean Rad, Tinder's founder, and the future of Tinder, now he's obviously going to white label this, but the future of Tinder is using that same hookup technique and applying it to different sectors. So he sees the value of this in future, you landing in a new country and you're using the same similar processes to find someone who's a local guide in that city, or, you know, finding it basically like, you know, an internet search engine directory of people. And that's where he's going to grow that business. We see examples of that already happening. So the same principles of something like Tinder behind Google Plus's Juega Play platform. You know, instead of connecting you with a date, it's going to connect you with somebody who wants to play the same sport as you, who's in the same area. And it's been appropriated by hotel groups as well. This scheme here from Marriott basically uses the same principles to pair you up with people who've got similar business history to you in a city whilst you're traveling. So that social dynamic is spreading. Argument that millennials are more equal because society is progressing, they're an embodiment of that. attitudes to equality, by race, by sexuality, by orientation, all of that is improving. We get strong responses from millennials about that. It's a generation that doesn't discriminate as much as previous generations did in that regard as society progresses. Becoming more equal in terms of gender equality as well, but we've still got a long way to go. The reason male employment here is going down is the aging population, more retirement. The reason female employment is going up is changing social taboos and empowerment, but there is still a gap there. At the moment, it's going to take 70 years to get equality between men and women, according to the United Nations. That's how slowly it's happening. And you can see the discrepancies worldwide between men in work, women in work as well, and also in pay. But that is something that's being challenged by millennials. One of the problems is a major employer for these younger consumers is obviously all the tech industry. Now, it so happens that the tech industry is probably more sexist than something like the UK Parliament in terms of the gender balance there. So you get people like Martha Lane Fox, despairing at that. And that's something that needs to be challenged going forward. Good news is we're starting to see progressive companies do that. Salesforce was the first company we noted doing this, doing an internal audit, having a big overview of what they pay their men, what they pay their women, and changing things accordingly. And that's what's now happening at Facebook. That's what's now happening at Microsoft as well. More ethical as well is something we see amongst millennials. I'm not my style isn't to show you lots of Mintel graphs, so apologies for this one. But what we see amongst the youngest millennial group, and indeed the older millennial group, is much stronger desire to purchase ethically, much stronger desire to check out the credentials of businesses as well. So that's really important, any kind of business you're launching in that regard. And you can see the success of online pressure groups, things like Avaz, 44 million followers and counting. And one of the reasons this ethical dimension to millennials is one of the ways they're getting experience is they're being compelled almost to volunteer, to get skills, to get experience from volunteering, because sometimes the route into the job market isn't as easy as it was for previous generations. And when we look at initiatives around charitable giving, around philanthropy, what we really see is millennials who are driving this. Most of the examples we're seeing from around the world, from new charitable businesses, things like Techno Gym, are coming from this younger group. We see startup initiatives by young people in India, volunteering, going out, giving haircuts to homeless people in the community there as well. Or I really like this one, it's a heavy metal festival where you get reduced or indeed free entry by donating a lock of your hair, which can be given to help create wigs for children who are having cancer treatment. So that is where we're seeing a lot of the innovation. It's a more visual generation. We're communicating. Sorry, Scott, got to stop saying we. I'm not a millennial. Communicating using emojis in that regard. We're bypassing oral communication. And we're using virtual reality. It's the younger group that's interested in using this as a form of research and communication as well. And brands are starting to recognize the commercial value of virtual reality isn't escapism, it's reassurance. This is the most powerful brochure in the world. So brands like Thomas Cook are getting you to virtually walk around a hotel or a resort to convince you to pay your money to go there. That's how savvy brands are using it. So we've got a generation that's going to grow up virtually exploring kitchen scenarios they might be able to build with IKEA, and that's how they're browsing and shopping. And augmented reality, where we have our normal field of vision with other content laid on top of it, is something else which is being introduced. Microsoft HoloLens here, allowing you to get things like three-dimensional recipe pop-ups so you can be shown how to make a meal or be shown how to repair something in your house. And that's changing the way the next young generation are going to learn as well. Things like these flashcards from this company in Indonesia, absolute genius. The traditional flashcard, look at it through your phone using their app. They come to life as three-dimensional images, so helping to train children. This is like the next generation of bubblegum cards. You can see these being, in cereal packs, you name it. But is this generation over-connected? Some people argue this is just kind of Darwinism in action, but this is a campaign by O2 in Germany stopping people from getting run over because they're just zombified and crossing the road with their phones and connecting with them in that regard. Again, back to Durex, they've done this campaign that, we are disconnected. Despite what you might think, we did a big survey at Mintel for Valentine's Day last year, and couples are having sex less frequently, and people are theorizing that part of this is the sort of obstacle of connectivity and devices. So we see campaigns trying to urge people to disconnect as well. And indeed, younger consumers we talk to, they multitasking with devices, over-connected in that regard, possibly. So that's really what's happening with this group. Now, what we're finding is the population in the UK is getting much more like the population of, somewhere like Spain or Italy. Huge proportions of young people living at home with their parents. So those habits, those traits are going to get passed on to an older generation and the next generation of seniors. And what we're also seeing is actually the emergence of multi-generational homes. So you've got millennials, their parents, their grandparents, all in the same house as well. Very small base here, but we are seeing increases in this as well. And the major influence these younger groups will have is they're like the in-house tech guys, tech girls for the rest of the family. They're going to train them, they're going to make their parents, their grandparents more aware of technology, stronger in terms of their use in it as well. So I'll sum over this quickly before we get on to the seniors, because I know that's what you want to see. We are looking at a group that's been raised on technology as an educator, and because of that, they're more open, they're less embarrassed about things when it comes to personal issues. Individual mindset, which craves personalization, which craves customization as well. They don't need to remember things anymore, and that's important because we're going to come on to seniors and look at issues around memory as well. That's one of the first links. More creative, yet more anxious as well. Better connected to people and services. That's something else which can provide something for seniors, as we'll see as well. More progressive, more ethically entrepreneurial. This is the group that's active in terms of creating things. More visual, possibly over-connected in terms of technology, in need of some analog respite as well. And they're going to be living more with these older consumers as well. So a lot of those traits we talked about are going to be passed on. So let's look at seniors. Now, the first thing to say about seniors is, if you want to start a business, this is the group that's got the money, okay? So, and we're going to look at how technology can play a role here. So Tim Berners-Lee's, at the Olympics, talking about this is for everyone in terms of the internet. That really is the case with all the technology we're going to look at. You're going to see a lot of technology in this next section. Might have been designed by younger people, might be pitched towards younger people. The big audience for it and the market for it is going to be these people. Because first, let's say, seniors are, an expanding demographic in all developed countries across the OECD. You've got a huge proportional increase in over 65s. And our data here from the UK, Office of National Statistics, 31% of seniors are living in households with total household wealth exceeding £500,000, compared with just 17% of 25 to 44s. So there's 25 to 44s is who most marketers are going after, but this is where the money is. At Mintel, we ask people about their financial situation. 46% of seniors describe it as healthy. They've got money left for luxuries and spending on things at the end of each month, compared with just 26% of consumers on average. Now, seniors are not so different than the millennials, because we've got to remember the seniors we're talking about, people aged 65 plus, these are the baby boomers. These are the people who invented popular culture as we know it. So all the things everyone is into this room, whether it's music, whether it's cinema, whether it's gaming, whether it's technology, they invented this stuff. So the differences aren't that great. But the demographic and lifestyle differences aren't that great either. Because one thing seniors are doing less is retiring. They're continuing to work. We've got huge proportions of them continuing the labour force, either because they're forced to, or because they want to. They want to stay involved and connected. And that's going to increase influences between both demographics. Another thing seniors are doing is coming back on the market in terms of dating. Because whatever sort of crises you read about in the media, divorce is only growing demographically for seniors. So it used to be that if you're with somebody you didn't want to be with, you'd die with regrets, game over. But now social taboos have changed, and we're seeing people, get divorced at that age to try and, find someone else special, or a bunch of average people, whatever. But we are seeing that happen. Now, sexually active as well until the end of their lives. These are the big sea changes we're seeing, especially, prescriptions, things like Viagra as well, patents expiring. This is more on the market as well. So some big changes. And because they're continuing to work, because they're looking for partners, they want the same things everybody else wants. They want to feel energetic, healthy, they want to feel competitive, they want to feel attractive. So big commercial opportunities around that. Now, I'm not saying this is the greatest product ever designed. The execution might be a bit off. It's the toothpaste which gives you energy. It's caffeinated. But that's exactly the kind of product seniors are going to look for, because they're going to want functional foods which have got energy, vitality, and they don't want to buy something. It reminds them of what their parents used to buy, old people's products, yeah? So if you can put energy in biscuits or chewing gums or sweets or whatever it might be, that's going to find a market. You know, huge proportions of people approaching seniorhood want to feel attractive, they want to feel well-groomed, amongst men as well as women. So what we've got to do is see more advertising and marketing like this. I'm not saying every senior is like Iggy Pop. He's exactly the same age as my father, and there are differences between them. But this is far too rare. An advertising campaign here from John Vartos. He uses Iggy Pop, he uses Ringo Starr, he uses that generation of old rockers, if we can call them that. But far too few brands use this. We do see it, we need more age-appropriate aspirational models to target this group. We do see examples of that, like Charlotte Rampling for NARS, like Helen Mirren for L'Oreal in the beauty space, but lots of other sectors aren't doing that. We still have what I would kind of call that kind of Michael Parkinson type life insurance advertising, which is far too cozy and patronizing. So let's look at the technology and how some of that can flourish for seniors. One thing to talk about here is wearable technology. This is still a market which is still emerging. You know, it's not doing as well as some people had hoped, but you can see the figures are encouraging. Targeted at young people. Now, we think that seniors market we talked about that wants to stay fit, healthy, competitive in the working place, competitive in the dating marketplace, they're going to embrace that. And already in China, we actually get higher proportions of older consumers embracing this kind of technology as well. And looking at what your phone can do, never mind wearables, there's going to be a lot of health initiatives around that as well. This is technology from Israel, basically creating something called a sniff phone, where you get an attachment to your phone which can analyze breath particles and give you early warning signs about things like cancer. So you're going to see devices being used more and more to monitor and assess health. And already we're seeing the insurance market getting involved in this. There's a bank in Russia called Alpha Bank we saw, which gave people preferential interest rates based on how active they were. How much you ran this week, your interest rate would go up. Great. It's like a marketing gimmick in the bank for healthy people. But you can see where this is going. That wearable's like the black box recorder you've got in your car. It's going to tell your insurer how healthy you are, how much you're doing to keep your side of the bargain. And we've seen that happen. So John Hancock, insurer in the States, gives Fitbits out to all people as part of his policies for life insurance, health insurance. So there's a new relationship between the device, the data you've got, and what you're going to get as a brand. So in terms of smart homes, we also believe it's the senior demographic which is going to drive that going forward. Because if you look at older seniors, the idea of the Internet of Things in terms of surveillance, smart controls and things like that really suits their needs. So if we go older still, 80 plus, this is where we're going to get the bigger proportional increase long term. So we're going to have, you know, huge amounts of people are going to need care. But what people want is to get care in their own homes. They want that independence. They don't want to go into care homes. They want independence in their own home. And the Internet of Things can do that. When we talk to consumers, they recognize that things like smart surveillance apps in the home can help them keep an eye on their kids or their pets or their elderly relatives and help maintain that independence we talked about. So, you know, we see this kind of technology coming on the market. Often it's cutified in Japan. Basically, little surveillance robots which keep seniors in your home in contact with you and help both of you maintain independence. So their needs are going to usher this in. The other thing about smart technology is it uses a lot of sensors. You don't need physical strength or exertion to control a lot of it. So it's not surprising that this demographic wants things like food packaging, which is easy to open. But that's also the reason they're going to embrace things like sensor controls in things like smart kitchens. So all of this might be positioned towards the needs of some 28-year-old who's got a super fast, important life and they just want to cook in this kind of high-tech way. The practical need and the money for it is probably in the senior demographic. Now, online shopping is actually not doing anywhere near as well as you might think. I mean, particularly in things like the groceries market. It's only around about sort of, 12, I think it's 12% of everything we buy is online. But with seniors, people who might have mobility issues at the top end of this market, they are going to buy into things like home delivery, online shopping in a big way because they might not have any other option. So that market is going to grow phenomenally because of that. So a lot of the smart shopping initiatives you see brought on the market, this is Amazon Echo, uses Siri-style technology. It's kind of like, if you've seen Her, the movie, and Samantha in Her, it's kind of like a low-rent version of Samantha. It responds to the name Alexa, and it'll answer Google inquiries, read back Wikipedia entries to you, play music you ask it to. It's just as an interface. But from Amazon's point of view, it's just another way of shopping, filling your basket. But you can see how this might work really well for seniors with memory issues or mobility issues going forward as well. Same thing with Amazon Dash, where a branded button just allows you to press that and automatically order a new box of Tide in this case. That can work really well for this demographic too. The best example I've seen, if we think about memory issues and things like that, is this from Pernod Ricard. These are actually, think of these as bottles of spirits. That's a liquid library. Each of those contains Jameson's or whatever. Now, because it's an alcohol, it's maybe not the best analogy for what I'm talking about. But with this, when your Jameson's gets down to that level, you don't need to worry about running out of it. It's going to automatically order a new one for you. You don't even think about it. Outsource it. Which, if you're like, highly functioning alcoholic, is great. But also, if you're a senior with memory issues and it's difficult to remind yourself, it can work. Think of this for milk or something like that. And that's the value of that going forward. Because if we have memory issues, if we have dementia going forward, this can really fight this. This is a big crisis coming. I think we're all aware of it. Governments are aware of it. They're really worrying how we're going to cope with this financially. Technology can play a role. So again, I'll show you a few examples of smart technology designed to jog the memories of younger, super busy consumers. You've got a smart desk here which tells you reminders. It's like having a sort of virtual PA. That could work in terms of helping seniors maintain independence in homes as well. Or this smart umbrella, this kind of technology, this texts you when you've left it behind. So these kind of initiatives can work really well for that older demographic, which is why we see startups like this one, GGen, in China, who've created this smartphone case, which also doubles as your little medicine case as well. So it reminds you when you've got to take your medication. Both things live in the same home as well. But it's not just about technological aid, it's about human aid as well. And we're seeing how technology is being designed by entrepreneurs to move into things like old people's homes and stimulate them. This is a projector. It's basically projects from above onto the table and it reacts to your hand movements. So it's used for sort of memory games, interaction as well. So again, technology specifically for this market is being developed. I mentioned home delivery, online shopping is going to grow enormously because of the issues of people with limited mobility. That's why brands like Amazon are expanding into things like home services, because they recognize people are going to need this to maintain their independence. And it's going to be a massive employer. There's going to be so much entrepreneurship, so many new businesses based around caring for seniors. Think about the reputation of care homes in this country. This is a big market opportunity to go in. So we get new professional caregiver networks being brought online by this one in the United States. And then things like this. This is Envoy in San Francisco. It's an app where you can basically control the concierge services, the help you get. It's not a million miles away from something like TaskRabbit, but it's more sensitive and it's pushed more towards a senior market. So you're getting, apps and this kind of approach created for seniors, creating an interface between them and care and you and them as well. So just to close, seniors, we really need to sort of target them as a business opportunity. They're not all of them, but they're the ones who've got the money compared towards younger consumers. And they are very, very similar to millennials, more similar than we think. They're working, they're dating, they're having sex. They want to look and feel young, and they want to be marketed to respectfully with age-appropriate aspirational models as well. And we do think they're going to invest in things like wearable technology to remain competitive in the workplace, in the dating place. They're going to invest in smart home technology to maintain their independence in their own homes or indeed the homes of their families as well. We didn't even get onto smart cars, but the reason something like driverless cars are being designed, I can guarantee you, is because of exactly what we've been talking about. Virtual reality is something which can be worked for seniors as well. If you think about the escapism, if we take it forward from that tabletop projector we looked at, virtual reality has big potential for seniors as well. So they need help from the millennials who started out looking from, but they're also going to be a major employer and a major customer for innovations from millennials as well. Thank you very much. Sorry if I went over a little bit.
No, really.